Imagine being hit with a $30,000 medical bill after an accident that wasn't your fault and the culprit driver drove off before you could get their information. You might think you're up a creek without a paddle, right? Well, I had a client in this situation, and in this video I'm going to share some often overlooked insurance strategies that help me not only clear his medical debt, but put tens of thousands of dollars in his pocket. Let's go back to last summer. My client Jackson is riding as a passenger in his friend's truck. It's a Friday afternoon, they just get off work, and they're planning to meet up with a few buddies and have a couple of beers. On their way there, they see a car coming from the opposite direction start to drift into their lane. They see the driver looking down at her phone, and so my client's friend honks the horn to get her attention. But she keeps drifting into their lane to the point that they're on course for a head-on collision. Now the car's coming at them so fast that my client's friend has to make a quick decision. At the very last second, he swerves to the right to avoid the collision, but he swerves so far over that his truck ends up going off the road and he loses control, and the truck ends up crashing into a tree. Now the two vehicles never ended up hitting each other, and the other driver who drifted into my client's lane just keeps driving, perhaps oblivious to the accident that she just caused. Fortunately, the vehicle that my client was in slowed down significantly before it hit the tree, so the force of the impact was relatively minor, but it was still enough to launch him forward because he wasn't wearing his seatbelt, and he hit his head against the windshield. Now after the crash, he looks in the mirror and he sees some scrapes on his face and notices that he has a couple of chipped teeth. The ambulance shows up and then they take him to the hospital to get checked out just to be safe. When he gets there, they get his insurance information, they run some tests, they do some scans, and they release him in a couple of hours without finding any major injuries. He goes to the dentist the following Monday and gets his teeth fixed. And he's better in about a week and doesn't really think much else about it. Until a few weeks later, when he gets a letter from the hospital. He opens it up and it's a medical bill for over $30,000. After my client picks his jaw up off the floor, he starts scratching his head. He gave the hospital his health insurance information, so he has no idea why he's getting this enormous bill for his emergency room visit. Well, he finds out from his health insurance company that his health insurance plan is refusing to pay the hospital bill because his health plan thinks that the bill should be paid by the at-fault driver's auto insurance. But the driver drove off, so my client doesn't know where to send the bill. He ends up getting frustrated by all the insurance red tape and then starts looking for lawyers and finds me. I explained that the type of case he has is known in the legal world as a miss and run or a phantom driver case. That's when another driver causes an accident without actually hitting another vehicle and then can't be identified because the driver fled the scene. Now most people don't know this, but accidents caused by phantom drivers can be covered by uninsured motorist coverage under their own auto insurance policy. Under most insurance policies, phantom drivers who cause an accident and then flee the scene are considered uninsured drivers. Now this accident happened in Missouri, which requires all drivers to carry at least $25,000 in uninsured motorist coverage under their own auto insurance policies. But not everyone complies with this law. In fact, one survey found that Missouri ranked 12th in the nation for having the highest rate of uninsured drivers. Over 16% of drivers on the road do not have insurance. Luckily for Jackson, his friend had uninsured motorist coverage under his auto policy, and Jackson was covered by that policy because he was a passenger in his friend's vehicle. But of course, Jackson was concerned about making a claim against his friend's insurance because he didn't want his friend's insurance rates to go up. Now, this is a common misconception that a lot of people have. A lot of states have laws that prohibit insurance companies from raising the rates of their customers just because they were in an accident that they didn't cause. Missouri is one of those states, so nothing to worry about there. But it turns out Jackson's friend was only carrying the bare minimum amount of insurance required by state law, $25,000. And Jackson had outstanding medical bills of over $30,000. So Jackson's friend didn't have enough insurance to cover Jackson's medical bills, let alone compensate him for being injured. Well, Jackson also had his own insurance policy on his truck, and it had $25,000 of uninsured motorist coverage as well. And even though Jackson's truck wasn't one of the vehicles involved in his accident, uninsured motorist coverage can still cover injuries from motor vehicle accidents while you're in someone else's vehicle. Another thing Jackson didn't know about. So we found another $25,000 through his own auto policy. But we weren't done yet. As it turns out, Jackson was living with his parents at the time of the accident, and a lot of people don't know this, but if you're living with a family member who has auto insurance, you might also have coverage under their policy as well. Turns out Jackson's parents had an auto policy and it also provided coverage for Jackson's injuries. It was another $25,000 policy. And because this accident happened in a state that allows us to combine all of the applicable insurance limits, which is known as stacking insurance policies, we were able to combine the $25,000 limits from 3 different policies to get a total of $75,000 in possible insurance coverage. But just because there's insurance coverage doesn't mean the insurance company is going to pay it. I negotiated hard with the insurance companies involved, and eventually they all folded and paid the entire limits of each policy and got Jackson $75,000 in uninsured motorist coverage benefits. A big reason I was able to get this much was because of how large Jackson's medical bills were. And after getting a $75,000 settlement and paying me 1/3 for my attorney's fee, Jackson was on track to not only pay off his medical bills, but keep a nice chunk of change of the settlement for his injuries. But I wasn't done yet. After we settled with the auto insurance companies, I then went back to Jackson's health insurance plan and worked out a deal with them to get his medical bills paid. I struck a deal with them that if they would pay his medical bills, we would pay them back from the settlement funds. The benefit of doing it this way is that the health plan gets huge contractual discounts on medical bills it pays for through the agreement it has with local hospitals and medical providers. Health plans will usually only do this kind of deal if you have an attorney who agrees to hold the settlement funds in a trust account and repay the health plan directly from those funds once the medical bills have been paid for. Jackson's health plan had a contract with the hospital Jackson went to that gave the health plan a huge discount on Jackson's medical bills. The health plan ended up paying less than $6,000 when the hospital tried to charge Jackson more than $30,000. After the health plan paid for Jackson's medical bills, we had to repay the health plan $6,000, but Jackson was happy to do it because it ended up saving him more than $24,000, which is money that went back to him. So in the end, Jackson went from owing more than $30,000 in medical bills to receiving more than $40,000 in his pocket after reimbursing the health plan and paying my attorney's fees and expenses. Do you want to know some of the negotiating strategies I used with the insurance companies to get Jackson this settlement? Watch this video here. And if you have an injury case you'd like to talk to me about, well, here's my contact information, or you can use the link in the description below to send me a message, and I'll get back with you to set up a time to talk. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope it was helpful. See you in the next one.